Yes. I don't know how to stand, so I can sort of see both at the same time, but I'll do my best. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the general meeting of Solidarity Lowell. Just an FYI, this meeting is being recorded. Oops, now I gotta figure out how to advance my slides. Okay. Guidelines for our virtual meetings. Welcome to our hybrid meeting. Please continue to bear with us as we are still getting used to this format. This meeting is being recorded and will be put on our YouTube channel. By staying in the meeting, you agree to be recorded. To speak, if you're in person, please raise your hands. If you are online, please use the raise hand option or raise your hand. I think I can see everybody in this list right now, so either of those should work, or you can put a star in the chat. Our timekeeper is Dee Halzak. Our stacker is Joe Boyle. And please be mindful of time limits. Step up, step back. This means that if you have not been talking, we would like to hear from you. So please step forward, raise your hand. We want to hear your opinions. And if you have been talking an awful lot, please step back and make room for everyone else. And obviously assume positive intentions. And please speak slowly. I am not doing that right now, but I will try to get better. Okay. Now, there we go. Okay. Our agenda, we're going to start with brief attendee intros and our land acknowledgements. Then we'll talk about Solidarity Lowell, news and committee updates. Then we'll have allied organization updates and an update on the document regarding the unhoused that we've been working on. And at 6:10, Mark Martinez will be speaking. He is a housing attorney at the Massachusetts Reform Institute, and we'll wrap up around very close to 7. Okay, so for our social, we don't really do this quite the way we used to. We used to start before the meeting and we don't anymore. But anyway, we call it the social partially distanced hour, quarter hour. Please introduce yourself. I will call on you and give you a name, your pronouns, where you live, and what is your favorite any kind of park. Okay, so I'm going to start with the people in person because that's easy. Dee, you want to go first?
Dee Halzak, she, her. I live in the acre. And I love any park, so I'll just say the Lowell National Park.
Amy?
Okay, Amy Baranowski, she, her, hers. I live in the acre / the edge of downtown. And my favorite park, I'm going to go with Gillette Castle State Park in Connecticut because I went there a lot growing up. It's a lot of fun. There's a little mock castle up on the hill.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Where is it?
In Lyme.
Oh.
Ryan?
My name is Ryan Hammond, he, him. I live in the acre. And my favorite national park would be Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, which I also went to quite a bit when I was young. It's a series of cliffs and rock formations on the southern shore of Lake Superior, and it's full of all beautiful, brightly colored stratifications in the rock.
Awesome. Good. Paul?
I'm Paul Godet. I'm from the Highlands. My pronouns are he, him. My favorite national park, actually the state park, is White Mountains, where I did a lot of camping college days.
Oh,
okay. Hi, everybody. I am Joe Boyle. My pronouns are he, him. I'm on the Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee. And my favorite park is Cogs Hall Park in Fitchburg. It's a 212-acre park with rocking trails and a man-made lake in the middle, and an amphitheater carved out of the rocks with a gazebo that goes out onto the lake from the stage, and it's just amazing, and nobody knows about it. That's right off Route 2, Cogs Hall Park in Pittsburgh.
Lisa?
Lisa Arnold, she, her. I live in downtown. I live downtown, and it should be no surprise to anyone following me on Facebook that my favorite place in the world is the Isles of Shoals, specifically Appledore Island, where I just spent a week at the Appledore Island Migration Station with little swans.
Mitch?
Hey, I'm Mitch Paulin. I live in I live in the acre. I've got a bunch of parks. The place I was actually thinking of when I contributed the question was Wampatuck State Park in Hingham, Massachusetts. which is near where I grew up and where we did a lot of bike riding. Former military base that's now been converted into nature trails.
Thanks. Chris?
Chris Ackerman, pronoun she, her. I live in downtown. I was going to say Lowell National Historical Park because I live right in it. But since T already took that one, I've been frantically thinking, and the best thing I can come up with is Grand Canyon. I was there many, many years ago and did the mule trip down into the canyon and was very impressed. My name is Dan. I'm a Draker resident right up the street. My favorite park is Veterans Park in Draker because I use it pretty much 3 or 4 times a week.
Ron?
I'm Ron Peastree, he, him. I live on Christian Hill, and this is sort of like gaming. My favorite park is the Adirondack Mountain Park because it's Mohawk territory where I grew up.
Nancy?
Nancy Green, she, her. I live in the Highlands and my favorite park is Robert Treatment State Park in Ithaca, New York. Because there's this beautiful waterfall that leads down into the swimming area and you can walk across the ledge at the bottom and have the waterfall beating down it. Great book.
Tom, do you want to go? I know you just walked in.
I'm Barrington, yeah, North Chelmsford.
Favorite park?
My favorite park is probably the new wilderness in the Adirondacks.
All right, we're gonna go to our online folks. Kade, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. My name is Kade Crockford. I work for the ACLU in Boston and thought I was gonna be able to get some time to talk to you guys tonight, but is that not the case? It is the case.
We'll do that at group updates, so just in a little bit.
Okay, awesome. I live in Dorchester, where I am right now, and my favorite park in Massachusetts is, I don't know, there are lots to choose from, but I'll just say the Blue Hills. I was just there today. It's lovely.
Okay, and Michelle? Michelle, are you there? I know she was winding a bobbin, so maybe she slipped away.
She put in the chat that her hands are occupied, but introduced herself in the chat.
Okay, just pull that up. Okay, my hands are occupied. My name is Michelle, she, her pronouns. I live in Lowell's Acre, and her favorite park is Francis Gate Park. Oh. Okay, and then I forgot to say mine, so I am Marissa DuPont. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I live in South Lowell, and my favorite local state/national park that nobody has mentioned yet is Purgatory Chasm, which is awesome. Okay, so let's move forward. All right, our land acknowledgement. Here on 10 Arlington Street in Dracut, we stand on the land of the following nations: the Wabanaki or Donlan Confederacy, the Pennacook, the Pentucket, the Pawtucket, the Agawam, and that's from nativeland.ca. Oops. Okay, and what is Solidarity Lowell? We are a volunteer-based group of community members of Greater Lowell working towards social justice by defending the human rights, dignity, and equality of all persons against hate and discrimination. We welcome new members. The coordinating committee is your elected team of volunteers running the meetings, organizing events, disseminating relevant news, and sharing calls to action. Coordinating committee members, raise your hands, wave, awesome. We want to wish congratulations to our incumbents, Lisa Arnold, Amy Baranowski, and me. And congratulations to our new members, Ryan Hammond, Mitchell Pollan, and Ron Peastree. All right, Solidarity Lowell is a chapter of Progressive Massachusetts. Progressive Mass is a statewide, member-driven grassroots organization committed to fighting for a vision of shared prosperity, racial and social justice, good government, and environmental sustainability in Massachusetts. And you can visit their website to learn more. The latest news is we are putting together a meeting with the new board president, Zaida Ortiz. And if you're interested in helping shape our chapter's relationship with Progressive Mass, contact Amy at solidaritylowell.com. Okay, victories. This is when we like to celebrate positive things that have happened this month. Charlie Mitchell became the first Black Michelin-starred chef. Maryland Governor Wes Moore signed measures into law to protect abortion rights and expand Medicaid coverage for gender affirming treatment. Fort Hood in Texas was renamed Fort Cavazos after General Richard Cavazos as part of the base renaming program to remove Confederate legacy from the military. Blue Bird Corporation joined the United Steelworkers Union, a major step forward in industrial unionization in the South. Who else has anything positive that they'd like to? Okay, Ron.
In Ron DeSantis controlled Florida, a Democrat won Jacksonville, against everybody's expectation, and didn't just win by a squeaker, she won by a big margin.
That's great. Anyone else? Joe?
This may be a little preliminary, but the motion in favor of accessory dwelling units at the Lowell City Council, the council voted to send it to the DPD for a report, which is a positive step. It's going to be going, when it gets back to the council, that's going to be D-Day. That's going to be when they vote up or down and whether to adopt this ordinance. So
We'll need to
one step closer.
bring the noise. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone online? Oh, sure. There's one person I can't see. Okay. Moving forward. All right. The elections committee. Dee, do you want to talk about that? Or Lisa, either one?
The schedule for things has just come out at the city level, so we're still in the stage of people are deciding whether or not to run. And we particularly need Hispanic candidates as they are underrepresented in spite of our new election system.
Ron?
June 3rd is Lowell's Democratic Caucus.
Yes.
And I've already heard from people inside of the greater Lowell area Democratic running committees, they don't have enough people. So if you feel about running, helping the gears of democracy work, they need volunteers.
Okay. Who would be contacts about that? Is that James Austin's?
James Ostis is
Oh, Mitchell, great.
Well,
and Chris Jenkins.
yeah, James Ostis is the city committee chair.
Mhm.
Chris Jenkins is the committee secretary.
Yep.
And Judith, of course, is involved too.
Judith is a good resource.
Yeah, but
I
she's
mean, as
retired.
a former chair.
Yeah.
I'm board 7 chair. And just a reference right now, the city's delegate portion was updated for the census and for the last election. Most of the wards received 6 or 7 seats, elected seats in addition to ex officio chairs. 7 got 5 people, and we currently have 4 people who are expecting to show up. So,
And that pattern is citywide.
Yeah. So folks from Lowell definitely.
The state Democratic Convention is being held in Lowell
Yes,
this year.
in the-
Yes, on this
Yeah.
arena,
23rd.
September 23rd.
Yep.
Saturday.
Yeah, we are rumored to be planning a party that evening, so just keep that in mind. Progressive Mass might be helping us out, hopefully, fingers crossed. Okay, the Merrimack Valley Interfaith Sanctuary Network. This is a program that we've been working with for, I don't even know how long, 4 or 5 years at this point. And we are supporting an asylum seeker whose name is Marius. He's from Togo. Yeah, we've assisted him since he arrived here in 2018. He and Lillian, an asylum seeker from the Dominican Republic, had a baby last year and need assistance. Gift cards are appreciated, but you can also donate cash through their GoFundMe. But the gift cards can be given to me. Just email me, Marissa at Solidarity Lowell, to coordinate drop off. And unpacking whiteness. Individuals committed to exploring their own racial biases are invited to participate in the Unpacking Whiteness Dialogue Group. Engage in supportive, structured dialogues to explore whiteness in contemporary society, especially to better understand the legacy and impact of white supremacy, white privilege, explicit and implicit bias, systemic racism, and microaggressions. The dialogue group is 5 sessions and it's capped at 10 people. And after attending the dialogue group, attendees are invited to the ongoing group, and that meets once a month and alternates between discussing a book or watching a film. And you can sign up at bit.ly/UW-signup. And if you have questions, just shoot me an email. Okay, so the unhoused protocol. This is the document that we've been working on for quite a long time, since January, I guess. So the motion that Corey Robinson put forth on April 25th, that was referred to the city manager. The good thing is that I think Wayne Jenis really helped us out and encouraged them to sort of change the language to be a little bit more progressive, but you know, it's still not super great, but we're hoping that things with that get better. We'll see what happens when the manager comes out with what's to come. And then on April 29th, members of Solidarity Lowell, Lowell Litter Crew and Lowell Transitional Living Center met with city manager Tom Golden. He was very Tom Golden, and he
was diplomatic.
if you have not met Tom Golden, he's very much a politician and brought his dog to the meeting and did a lot to derail us, but I think we managed to stick to our agenda and say everything that we wanted to say. We'll see if he listens to us. I mean, at one point he was like, oh, so we can notify them 7 days before we do sweeps. And we're like, no, A, no sweeps, B, 7 days is not enough. So we tried. So we'll see what happens. But once he comes out with a new city protocol, we'll probably need to have some sort of action on that.
I think it's really important to note that Tom Golden, he was very blunt during the meeting. He has no intention of having the sweeps stop or go away. And he thinks that's a permanent part of Lowell policy. And so we have not moved him an inch on that level here.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously we're gonna keep pushing, but we'll see. And then on May 9th, there was another motion put forth by Dan Rourke, Corey Robinson, Kim Scott, that should be a K, and Counselor Yem. Oh, it's all Counselor, never mind. I was thinking it was first name. Requesting the city of Lowell declare homelessness a public health crisis. If you're not familiar with Lowell politics, back in 2020, there was a motion to declare racism a public health crisis. So many of us kind of saw this as a bit of a troll. And we don't know what's going to happen if homelessness is declared a crisis. You know, they could decide, oh, now this justifies our sweeps. So we are not thrilled with this, and it passed unanimously. So that's something else that we're going to keep an eye on.
Marissa?
Yes.
A little more input into this. Before the city council passed this unanimously, Councilor Jeunesse stepped up again and submitted an amendment to not only declare this declare homelessness a public health crisis, but have the city manager produce an action plan. Yes. And then that passed. So from this being, this has apparently gone from being a free gesture to something that could actually be substantive and important.
Yeah. I mean, we're just gonna have to keep an eye on everything. Dee?
There's a motion on the agenda for the coming city council meeting by Corey Robinson to look at the possibility of converting the old Superior Courthouse to provide services that would include wraparound services as well as intake. For homelessness. We've seen the city move from let's ignore them and provide no services to it's not going to go away and we need to do something about services. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
they still have a lot to learn and a long distance to go, but that's a great improvement on where we started.
Yeah.
And we've had something to do with moving that, I think, so.
Yeah, so we should definitely, you know, if you're available Tuesday night, go out and support that motion. Corey's been hot and cold, but I think that's important. That's a good step.
Is there any talk about the funding for such services?
They haven't really gotten into that. I mean, obviously, all the counselors are always express concern about how we are going to fund this and how, you know, but when it comes to other things, there's never that discussion. So chances are the money is there and they just, you know, don't want to use it. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. as always. But yeah, we're doing our best to.
Marissa,
move this
I've
forward.
been happily surprised that the Lowell Sun seems to be giving us quite a bit of coverage.
Yeah,
It's almost like weekly, they say it's again on the agenda of city council and there are a lot of things they can put up there.
And it's not horribly biased either.
Yes.
I think we're very lucky that Melanie Gilbert, that particular reporter who's been covering us, like she actually said she might come to the meeting tonight, but I don't see her online yet. But she's definitely been paying attention to what we're doing. So that's,
She's been paying attention to the whole.
Yeah.
Homelessness issue in the city. Yep. Very balanced way.
yeah, she's really good.
Before we go on to the next part, we didn't. So this is not an election committee thing, but one of the things we haven't talked about is our plans to meet with state reps, which ties into the homelessness.
Oh, yeah, no,
housing
that's-
stuff.
I thought that was, yeah, this is the next
Oh,
slide.
okay.
So two things on this one. So Life Connections, Jamie Lynn Dillon, who's attended a number of our meetings, runs, well, I don't know if she runs, she's the director of Life Connections?
Yes, she is.
Yes, she's the director. So she actually contacted Purple Carrot, and they are the folks that if you were at the city council meeting with Corey Robinson's motion earlier, she got up and spoke about how this problem has directly affected her business, and was very balanced in the way that she explained everything, and was very careful not to say that they should be doing sweeps or whatever. Like she was very careful in her language, and said that she wants the city to take care of the homeless people in a caring way, not shuffle them aside. But anyway, Life Connections contacted them, and they are now going to contact Life Connections rather than the Lowell Police Department when they need assistance with an unhoused person. So that's a huge improvement. And we're thinking we should try to facilitate a similar arrangement with Warp and Weft, since Eric Faulkner from Warp and Weft spoke at that meeting as well and was not as sympathetic. He's a very nice man, but it sounds just like he's at the end of his rope. And so if we can make some progress there and help them, that'd be great. So yeah, the next step we think is to go one level higher and start talking about this with our state reps. So Chris Offerman is coordinating a meeting with Vanna Howard. Dee Halzek is coordinating a meeting with Roddy Mom. Mitchell Pollan and Ron Peastry are coordinating a meeting with Rodney Elliott. And meetings are being set up now, and we need your attendance. So if you are interested, please email. You can email me, you can email Chris, you can email Dee. Mitch and Ron don't have Solidarity Lowell emails yet, so just email contact@Solidarity Lowell, and we can get that going. Dee?
Yeah, Paul has information
Yeah,
on
well,
Roddy.
I have Ratty Mom's cell number, so I
Oh, great.
left a message on his cell, and I left him a memo this afternoon asking for a meeting here in district. Preferably, in the evening or the weekend, but also maybe a late morning would be fine as well, with a small group from SL.
Yep.
Haven't heard back yet, but I'll keep pursuing that.
Awesome.
And I suggested within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, great. All right, moving forward. Oh, Michelle.
Hi, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that Rep Mom is in Cambodia currently. Like, when were you guys looking to set up the meeting with him?
I mean, as soon as possible, basically.
Yeah, I'll keep asking around if anyone's seen him. I'm trying to be diplomatic, but I don't think he's currently in the country. So that's it.
All right, so it's not like a vacation with an end date. He just is not.
350 Mass and John Grossman, myself and Steve and Jay Mason met with him last Monday
Oh,
in district.
okay, so he is.
So if we
You
left-
did. Okay, well, I don't know what the situation is, whether he's actually left or not. That's what I heard as of the end of last week.
It sounds like our version of Where's Waldo.
Yeah.
I know it's ridiculous that this is even a problem. I'm just telling you what I hear because I work in the same building, but you never know. He's just wily like that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Now, Allied group updates and announcements. So first, we're going to start with Kade from the ACLU. So please feel free to give us an update.
Great. Thanks for letting me speak, everybody. Happy Sunday. Go Celtics. God willing, we'll pull ourselves out of the hole that we're in. So I run something called the Technology for Liberty program at the ACLU of Massachusetts. Basically, I'm in charge of our technology and civil rights work, and I wanted to tell you guys about two campaigns. One is a campaign that we've been working on for some years now. The goal right now is to pass legislation to implement recommendations that were made by a special legislative commission tasked with studying what rules should govern the police use of facial recognition technology in Massachusetts. I was on that commission. I think the recommendations are really solid. They were endorsed by the ACLU, the NAACP, lots of other organizations, including the then AG Maura Healey's office. So we think they're a very good, compromise set of regulations. And last session, at the very end of the session, that legislation passed the House in an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote, 149-4. Every Democrat voted for them. Even we got most Republicans to vote for the recommendation for that legislation. So unfortunately, the Senate did not take it up at the end of last session. So we're back this session trying to get that done. I'm happy to send folks more information about that via email, but at key times this session, we're going to be looking for folks to make calls, email their members, etc. So I wanted to flag that. The second thing that I wanted to flag is that we are going to be launching a campaign in the middle of June. Please, don't tweet about this or whatever yet, but we're going to be launching a campaign in a couple of weeks to try to pass legislation to ban the sale and trade of cell phone location information. We see this as our office's response to the abortion decision in Dobbs that came down last year. Basically, there's like a multi-billion-dollar industry that exists solely to sell information derived from our cell phones about where we go 24 hours a day. That's obviously unacceptable for a whole host of reasons. There are a lot of communities that care about their privacy and not being basically stalked by anybody with a credit card who can pay for that information. Folks who are coming to Massachusetts to seek reproductive health care that is banned, criminalized in their home state are one of the groups of people we think really would benefit from shutting this market down in Massachusetts effectively. So we'd love your support on that campaign. Like I said, we're launching in the middle of June. Progressive Mass is an endorser already, but we'd love to work with you guys as well. And I should say Progressive Mass is also working with us on our face surveillance stuff. So I can send a lot more information. I'm happy to come and speak at a future meeting and get in a little bit more detail about either one of those things, but I just wanted to flag that for now. So I think folks have my email and just hit me up if you want to chat more about that. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Question?
Yep.
What's the approach to shut down this industry? Is it going to be legislation? Is it going to be a court decision?
Yep. So we have, we're supporting legislation that was filed by Rep. Lipper Garabedian in the House and Senator Cindy Cream in the Senate. I'll send you guys a bunch of material, including the bill and like a fact sheet and stuff.
Awesome.
Great.
Any other questions, Ron?
Does the facial recognition bill take steps to deal with the bias in the training that was leading to such horrible results?
So, not explicitly, but what it does do is limit the entities in the state that can possess facial recognition technology to just the state police. And it requires the state police to get approval from the Executive Office of Technology Services after they go through a public process before acquiring facial recognition technology. So while there isn't any kind of like, you know, there's no specificity in this, in the legislation itself, in what we hope will eventually become statute about the technology that can be used, there is a requirement that the state police get approval from this executive office first, and that EATS, basically this executive office, has to go through a public process, you know, before they can approve that technology. So anyway, there is an opportunity for people, us, you know, experts, other folks, to get involved in, and to ensure that they're only using technology that, you know, doesn't exhibit the kinds of like really extreme racial and gender bias that we've seen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Share my screen again.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I'm going to email you some stuff.
Okay, thank you so much, Kate. We really appreciate it. Okay. Any other group updates that folks want to share? We use this time for our members who are involved in other groups to tell us what's going on with those and, you know, share any important events or information that's coming up. Joe?
Yes, I've got one. On Monday, I attended a Zoom that was hosted by Senator Ed Kennedy about the CARE Act. And the CARE Act is, which is co-sponsored by 2 of Lowell's 3 state reps, is a piece of legislation that mandates more racially inclusive curriculum in the public schools in Massachusetts and creates a revenue stream, you know, a permanent revenue stream for materials, because you constantly need to be buying new books and whatnot, and districts need to be keeping up with who the populations that are coming into their community that they need to make sure they're included are. There was a bunch of funding for this from ARPA as a one-time thing, and now this bill would fold into it and make it sustainable. And it's a really good cause, and it was worth pursuing. And I guess they're gonna be looking for it seems like the Lowell delegation is already strongly in, and they're gonna be looking for contacts to people in committees and stuff going forward.
Is this something that if we get our postcard writing group going again, that they could help with?
Yes, yeah, I believe so.
We dropped that ball for this meeting, but normally we write a postcard at the beginning of the meeting while we're all waiting for the meeting to start. We gotta do that again. Okay, any other group updates? Checking online.
Marissa?
Yes.
So, Merrimack Valley Project has 3 chapters. Our Lawrence chapter held a big march and rally on April 30th against violence in the city, gang violence, drug related violence, and promoting care and training through the evangelical churches primarily. There were 26 churches participated in a public march on April 30th, 10 o'clock in the morning. That all the church services were canceled so that they could participate in this event.
That's amazing.
And somewhere between 400 and 1,000 people participated 4 streams of the march to the central location of the Common, where there were speeches and explanations, of course, that this is not the end of the campaign, it's the beginning of the campaign for these churches to start doing training and education to families and students. The downside is it didn't get much press. I didn't think anybody saw it in the Globe or Channel 5, nothing. But the organizers said part of it was that there had been a murder or a violent incident the night before, so the press was all over that. And it was exactly the message that they didn't want to happen. But the commitment is there. The church leaders, 26 pastors gathered together, and it was an inspiring event in the rainy morning that day, and a great turnout in a good pivoting moment.
Yeah. If there's anything like that in the future, please let us know. All right. Any other group updates? Okay, so our guest speaker is Mark Martinez. He is a housing staff attorney at the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute. He joined in 2022 as a staff attorney in the housing unit. Prior to joining MLRI, he served 3 years as legal counsel and budget director to State Senator Patricia D. Jalen. In this role, he focused primarily on policy related to labor, criminal legal reform, the environment, and housing. He worked on passing legislation to prevent evictions, as well as to create and preserve affordable housing through a tenant's right of first refusal and a transfer fee. Also, while at the State House, Mark co-founded Beacon BLOC or Beacon Block, a collective of staffers organizing around making cultural and institutional changes on Beacon Hill to better recruit, retain, and support staffers of color. So thank you so much, Mark, for being here, and take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. Really happy to be here. Joseph, I agree. Pat Jalen is the greatest. She was phenomenal to work for. So I'm assuming, so I'm going to share my screen real quick just to go over some. Hold up. All right, so I'm going to go somewhat quickly through these. You know, this is a slideshow. This is very kind of top level, bare bones. I'm happy to answer any questions, but just didn't want to go into, you know, crazy amounts of detail right from the beginning. And so these are really the legislative priorities for the Housing Practice Group, the Mass Law Reform Institute, which is obviously where I work. And we work, as you'll see, on a whole host of housing related policies. Most of the housing policy happening at the State House, we have some hand in. So this is not all of the housing stuff, but this is kind of our top priorities for the session. And so once I'm done, happy to answer any questions about this or any other housing related bills that you may be curious about. And so these are in absolutely no particular order. All right, so the first one, an act promoting access to counsel and housing stability in Massachusetts. This was formerly known as the right to counsel. This session we have switched it, the verbiage a little bit, to be access to counsel. And really what this does is it would be funding to provide representation for all low-income individuals facing eviction. So what we know is there's a massive disparity between landlords that are represented by counsel and tenants. So Massachusetts statewide, over it's about 95% of landlords are represented by attorneys in eviction proceedings, while statewide less than 10% of tenants are. So there's a massive disparity. What I can tell you as a housing attorney, as someone that spends time in courts, having an attorney makes, as you can imagine, a huge difference. The eviction process is really complicated, and even in a state like Massachusetts, where relative to a lot of places, we do have a good number of eviction protections. We still need plenty of more, some of which I'll talk about. Most of those are really almost impossible to avail yourself of if you don't have an attorney walking you through that process. And so this bill, it would be a 5-year phase-in process to get that off the ground. So like I said, all low-income individuals, including low-income landlords, are able to have representation throughout the eviction process. Our legal aid organizations right now are swamped. If you were to call, at least for us, it's Greater Boston Legal Services. For you all, Northeast Justice Center, right, legal aid organization. If you needed help with a housing case and were facing eviction, the chances of you actually getting representation are really low because the need is just far too high right now. All right, is this gonna go? All right, so the next one is an act promoting housing opportunities and mobility through eviction ceiling. Otherwise, you've likely, if you've heard of this, just heard of it as the Homes Act, which would allow right now, it would allow for a mechanism to seal eviction records. So right now in Massachusetts, once you have an eviction filed, just filed, you don't have to go through the whole process. Once an eviction is filed, that is on your record forever. There is no mechanism for removing that, which becomes a massive barrier in housing moving forward. And again, that is once an eviction is filed, it doesn't matter if you ultimately win that eviction, if the eviction is ultimately dismissed, if it was found to be an illegal eviction, that is there. And there's really nothing that you can do about it. I actually believe that, everything that I talk about here is necessary and important to kind of fix the housing crisis. But when it comes to eviction protections, I actually think the Homes Act is top tier. It's top level. I can't tell you how many times I've had to have conversations with clients in court, letting them know after they've received a notice to quit, a faulty notice to quit, claiming that they owed money that they did not owe, and have to have a real conversation with them about whether or not they pay money that they know they don't owe, so that their landlord doesn't face an eviction. Because even if they're likely to win that case, an eviction record is a really hard thing to overcome when you go to search for housing. What I will say is the current version filed is a weaker version that has been filed in past sessions. We are doing advocacy to strengthen that. I think there's some stuff missing, and I'm happy to answer questions around that a little bit later. But I think, eviction ceiling is really important if we want people to be able to assert their rights. Act relative to summary process and rental assistance. This one is a bit of a technical one. You may have heard a couple of months ago, we got a lot of press around the expiration of what was known as the Chapter 257 protections, which were protections that were put into law during the pandemic that basically said your case had to be continued. Basically, your eviction case had to pause if you had an application for rental assistance pending. Right, the idea being really simple, that if you could potentially have a check in the mail in the next few weeks to clear your rental arrearages, your landlord gets their money, we don't think you should be evicted while you wait for that process. And so we filed this bill at the beginning of the session to make those protections permanent. Unfortunately, the legislature let them expire, but the language to reinstate Chapter 257 and make it permanent has been included in both the House and the Senate budget. And so, barring veto by Governor Healy, which I don't see happening, these 257 protections should be back and permanent. But I still just like to talk about it because those protections are just, really common sense protections. When we had them during the pandemic, for the time that we were collecting data, over 9,000 people were granted continuances under the Chapter 257 protection. So that's over 9,000 evictions that at the very least were delayed, and what we know in often cases ultimately prevented, which is obviously our goal, is preventing evictions. An act to improve the housing development incentive program. So moving away from the tenant protection side a little bit, this really is about building affordable housing. So there's a program known as the Housing Development Incentive Program. It's a tax credit. It's a tax credit for developers to build housing, which we know housing needs to be built. But what we also know is that it needs to be built affordably. And so right now, through the HDIP program, as it's called, right now we give away $30 million a year in tax credits for projects that build almost no affordable units. There's a big push now to extend that over the next few years to a couple $100 million a year in tax credits. And we agree we need to build housing, but it is our belief at MLRI that if we're going to be spending a couple $100 million of taxpayer money to build this housing, it needs to be affordable to keep up, right? We can't just build market rate housing to get our way out of this housing crisis. We know that that doesn't work. And so this bill would require that, like I said, that program requires some level of affordability. I would like to see more than 20, but that's just a me thing. 20 should be the bare minimum. An act enabling cities and towns to stabilize rents and protect tenants. This is that big dirty word, rent control, that everybody is talking about. And so a couple of things on this. Again, this is a local option bill. So again, our bill would just repeal the ban and give municipalities the opportunity to enact rent control. It would not, this is not statewide rent control. A couple other things about this bill. There's a few different versions of rent control bills floating around out there. Rep Connolly has filed one. Our bill is more prescriptive than some of the other ones out there. It would make it so that if a municipality did adopt this rent control provision, that the cap would be at 5%, the increased cap would be at 5%, and then would also have, those just cause eviction protections that come along with these policies. which we think is really important. You know, we were excited to see Boston pass. I live in Boston, right? Happy to see, you know, the city council pass the Mayor Wu's rent control home rule. We think it was a really good start. We think 10% is too high of a cap in places where rent is already too high. And so, we are fighting for a policy that we think really would have the effect of stabilizing rents, right? Because that's what we want to do. And so that's why we're fighting for a slightly more prescriptive version of the bill, but one that, we believe in. And I'll also, once I'm done here, I'll drop a link in the chat to a more in-depth fact sheet about this bill. But I don't, like I said, don't want to get too into the weeds unless you all want me to get into the weeds, then I'm happy to do that. An act to guarantee a tenant's right of first refusal, otherwise known as the TOPA Act. This is a preservation thing, a way to preserve what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. We spend a lot of time talking about the production of new affordable housing, and that is absolutely critical to fighting this housing crisis. But another thing that doesn't get talked about as much, that is just as important, is preserving the affordable housing that we already have. If we can't keep on building new units while losing the same amount of units on the back end, right, we're not gaining anything. And also, preservation of affordable housing is also a lot cheaper than building new affordable housing, right? They're both important, but this is really important use of money. And so what a right of first refusal does, this happens in DC. DC has this, and it's been really successful, is basically if you live in a building, usually larger apartment buildings, and your landlord decides that they want to sell that building, they have to let you know. And as a tenants association, you have the opportunity to purchase that building and create what's known as a limited equity co-op. What we're envisioning happening a lot more with this is the tenants associations can also then assign their rights under this law to like a local nonprofit or CDC to then be able to purchase the building to keep it affordable. We envision that being the far more common occurrence rather than like tenants association having enough personal capital to like buy a building. But we know that it happens in DC. And again, it's a good way to, establish some stability in housing and maintain, again, what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. And then the last one that I have, let me go back, sorry, is another local option bill, and this is for a real estate transfer fee. So again, local option meaning nobody is mandated to do this. This would just allow municipalities to do it. And if you're not familiar what a transfer fee is, it's simply a small fee that you take off the top of high real estate transactions. There's a few different bills out there. Some set the threshold at $1 million, some set it at $2 million. But whatever that threshold is, basically a municipality would be able to take 0.5 to 2%, totally up to them and what feels right to their community, from those high-end real estate transactions to fund affordable housing, right? Because what we know is part of the reason that housing, especially in areas like Boston and other gateway cities, I'm sure Lowell, part of the reason that housing continues to become increasingly more expensive, right, is this speculative market. It's people buying properties, sitting on it for short periods of time, flipping it, selling it for more money. And so it's a really simple belief that if you are making the amount of money off of the speculative market that these places are, and therefore driving up the cost of living for everybody else, that we should be able to have a very small piece of that to help keep people in their neighborhoods. And so that is the end of mine. Let me stop there. And then I just want to quickly drop in a link. So a lot of my work at MLRI is with a group known as Homes for All, which is a statewide coalition of grassroots housing organizations, and their legislative priorities pretty much line up with ours. And so I dropped the link to their legislative priority list in the chat. And so I think that was a lot of information. So I'm going to stop talking, and I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Ron?
Are you guys working with the people who are trying to get a true living minimum wage in place?
So we aren't directly, right? Like our work is specifically related, at least the housing practice group at MLRI is focused right just on the housing policy side of it. We have other units that do work on like benefits and other anti-poverty measures, and they could be, but our work directly at the housing unit is not with minimum wage people, though I feel confident in saying that the housing unit at MLRI would support that, because obviously, right, better wages makes it a lot more likely that you can afford to stay housed.
We had as our speaker a couple of meetings ago, we had somebody from Abundant Housing Mass. You in contact with them?
Yeah, so I'm assuming it was Jesse that came from Abundant Housing. But if not, yes, yeah, we're in contact with Abundant Housing. You know, I think that the production side of this piece is really important. It's not where we spend most of our energy, just because we know a lot of people are already on that, right? Where we come in on the production side is making sure that it's affordable, right? There again is this belief that this is just like a pure supply and demand issue, and that if you just build more housing without a whole lot of thought for affordability, that the problem is going to solve itself. We don't believe that, right? The research and the data doesn't support that really at all. And so, you know, our advocacy is on focusing on, you know, anything that does get built, making sure that it's affordable, and actually affordable, right? Building a bunch of units at 80% of the area median income is not going to cut it. That's not actually affordable for people, the people that need housing the most. And so we definitely, you know, we align on a lot of stuff with Abundant Housing. I think as far as the groups that focus on the production side, primarily Abundant Housing is probably the one that I agree with the most, and the one that I trust the most, because they also support a lot of our tenant protection side of stuff. And it takes both, right? It's not, right? The biggest thing that I work on is rent control. Rent control is not the silver bullet. Rent control is not going to solve the housing crisis, but it is going to help people right now. Right, because the thing that I always say is the legislature could wake up tomorrow and decide to put all $53 billion of our state budget into building housing. That's going to take a really long time to build, right? That's going to take decades. And in the meantime, people are hurting now. People are losing their homes now. And so the tenant protection side, to keep them where they are now, while we do the other stuff that we also know is needed to, you know, get us out of this crisis, which absolutely is, we need to build, and we need to build a lot.
It's so complicated. There's so many aspects of it that no group even can take on every housing related issue, and we need to divide the labor. And so that means we need to make sure we're working together.
Yeah, I mean, and so one of the other things that I'm working on that we will hopefully have ready in the near future, it's actually the thing that most excites me about my work and my job is we are pulling together everybody and trying to come up with some type of platform outright. We're still in the phase of what we're going to call it, but basically some type of, the easiest way is like outline, right? So that the legislature knows that like, here are all the things that you have to do if you're going to take housing seriously, right? We can't just do one thing. We could pass every single tenant protection that we want, that I want, that we're advocating for. It's not going to solve the housing crisis. We could build all the housing that we need. If we do it without the tenant protection stuff, it's not going to solve the crisis. And so we know that people have worked in silos for a really long time because, as you all know, the way that the legislature operates and the way that they tell us they operate is they can only take on one issue a session, essentially, and they really try to divide all of these things out. And we're really trying to figure out a way to bring all these voices together to say, actually, that's not an option here, right? You've allowed us to get to this, I think housing crisis is actually too small a word to describe the situation that we're in. Right, we're in a full-blown emergency, and if the legislature wanted to do like nibble around the edges of this and do this bit by bit, they needed to start a decade ago at the least. And right, so trying to figure out how we get all of our voices together to say no. Like if we're going to do housing, we have to do it, and it has to be comprehensive, and like you've got to touch all of these buckets. So we're in the works. people are excited about it. You know, as I'm sure you all know, pulling together that type of effort, it's a lot of people and a lot of ideas, all great ideas. But so hopefully that will be a thing that we can roll out soon. So we can really use that as a framework for all of our discussion on housing this session moving forward.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you coming today. And once you have that whole list of bills, you know, that definitely tell us, because we, you know, as you heard, we're planning meetings with all of our reps right now. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna drop my email in the chat as well. If anyone has questions, please feel free to reach out to me. However, it can be helpful. I have no choice but to believe we're gonna get this stuff done this session because I don't know what the alternative is, if we're being honest. And so, you know, look forward to coming back when we're ready to roll everything out and really kind of do this full court press on housing, because it's going to take everybody. Right, what we have seen this session is everybody's top priority is housing. Groups that have normally never touched housing, that is the only thing that they're talking about, because we have to be, and we have to be talking about housing. And so, you know, we're really excited about the possibility of being able to harness that energy into something really comprehensive in a way that at least I've never really seen at the State House. And I've been in and around that building for quite some time now. So, all right. Thank you all so much. Have a good night, y'all.
okay, share my screen again. Okay, so our next meeting, that thing will disappear, is June 25th at 5:30 p.m. here or online. We'll be doing both. The topic is to be determined. And we, Chris has her spiel now.
I to find my voice, yes. My usual announcement that most of you know by now. We always welcome more volunteers to send out reminder texts. It's easy to do. We have a little script that I send out to everybody. We have a list that we divide that I send a link to everybody. All you have to do is copy and paste. Like it says, there's a 10 to 15 minutes a month kind of texting that you want to volunteer for. It's also not for life. You can do it once, you can do it every month, you can do it every other month. It doesn't matter. But the more hands we have, the easier it is. So if you're willing / able to do that, email me, chris@solidaritylowell.com.
Awesome. Okay, and you can always join us online on our Facebook page, which is where you'll see public events, photos, and more, but you will miss out on discussion. If you want to join the Facebook group, that is where you can participate in discussion and have access to all of our events, including those for members only. You can visit us on our website or Instagram or Twitter. Thank you so much for attending. Have a great night.
What do you know?
And Sherry,
Now that we're done with the official part, I would like